All right, now, would you look at that? 10th episode in, the planets seem to have aligned to give us a wonderful lineup for today's show. We're going to be starting up with the release of more info on the Marvel Cinematic Universe's Spider-Man 3 and Loki, followed by Nickelodeon's launch of Avatar Studios. Then we are going to be giving our thoughts on the new trailer for the new Pixar film, Luca, and capping off the show with our review of the United States versus Billie Holiday. Now, before we get into the talk about, or what seems to be our weekly talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and hit the bell to get all notifications. Whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, we are, of course, looking to expand our reach on our podcasting platforms. If you're just happen to notice those social media platforms, those social media page links in the description below, they're there for a reason. Hit them up. Follow. You won't regret it. Now, Marvel has had a bit of a week. Wouldn't you say, Darius?
Oh yeah, definitely quite a few announcements from Marvel. I mean, this is honestly pretty interesting, pretty cool, and also expected to a certain degree because it's like at some point they will be announcing the Spider-Man title, that release window, as well as for Loki and the other projects they have in store. And it seemed fitting and right that they would announce the Spider-Man title, which is Away from Home.
No Way
Correct?
Home.
It's No Way from Home. Right? No Way Home.
Yeah.
That is an interesting title, to say the least.
And, I think it's an interesting title to say the least. Of course, when that little teaser was shown, with not like actual like footage from the film itself, but as far as like the three prominent cast members walking out of the office and just like talking about Tom Holland spoiling, they walk past that little, I guess, beat board, that whiteboard of like a bunch of different titles. And once that image was shown, like there were like so many fan theories as far as like, are there going to be any clues or anything like that? And I tried getting in on that because even though I know next to nothing when it comes to comic books, but there's one point where it's written Home World or something like that. And there have been a lot of theories about like, Spider-Man coming in from like the other universes and whatnot. So I figured that might have something to do with it. Like that might be the little clue that like, this is indeed happening. Again, I could be totally wrong. So what do you think about all this, Darius?
I mean, honestly, you brought up a good point that all the other titles they had in the background was like Home World, and this goes into the theory and really that WandaVision sets up the next couple movies, which is Doctor Strange and Spider-Man, and how it's going to be opening up the MCU to the multiverse. And I think that's going to be and it kind of almost teases where Spider-Man is going to be in this next film. Because how I'm seeing it is that, okay, maybe he's stuck in the multiverse, maybe somewhere else, and he has to get back, and that's why it's titled No Way Home, because there's almost no way home. Of course, we know Doctor Strange is going to be playing a big role in this movie. So, it's just a title, so I'm going to have to know a bit more when it comes to the trailer, when they drop the first trailer. Because I think that's going to show and almost outline sort of this third Spider-Man movie and even some of the MCU from there on out. So, honestly, I don't have a lot of thoughts on it, just mainly just that, okay, cool title. Of course, Home's going to be in it. Kind of makes sense. They've been going with that trend for the last two movies. So, I mean, I do like the blue, however, in the Spider-Man logo. That is an interesting touch, and I wonder why they're not the usual red that we've seen in the previous titles in the Spider-Man movies.
I'm going to be honest, I don't have an answer for you on why that could possibly be. But it's funny touching on the point where you said that, like, it's probably about Spider-Man trying to find his way home yet again. But my thought is, which Spider-Man is trying to find his way home? Which Spider-Man can't seem to have a way home? This is all stuff to think about too. And another thing I noticed in the, I guess,
you're breaking my brain right now, Joe. You're breaking my brain.
I know, right? And again, I don't even read comic books, which is the best part. So that's so irony's always whatever. Some joke about irony, but one thing I did notice in like the thumbnail or poster for the film was it said only in theaters Christmas Day, which made me really happy.
So made me really happy because it seems to make it into
because it seems like companies or like these production houses and distributors seem to want to bring that movie theater experience back. Once again, we've talked so many times on this show about the movie theater experience and doing our best to keep it alive. And I'm really, really happy that it's saying only in theaters. Like, all right, this is the first solid step. Again, could this change like tomorrow when there's some like, miraculous surge in cases of COVID for whatever reason? Of course, absolutely. But the fact that they're at least saying on like their official poster, at least for now, only in theaters, that makes me really happy. But taking a break from Spider-Man, moving forward to Loki, that is set to release on Disney Plus June 11th of this year, which I find kind of interesting. Why they kept that hidden under wraps for so long, like the release date itself. Whereas we knew for WandaVision pretty early on that is going to come out in January. We knew for Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldier that's going to come out in March. I wonder what the reason was for keeping that release date under wraps as long as they did, especially after the trailer.
Yeah, it's interesting considering that because of the amount of MCU shows coming to Disney Plus this year, you would think it will almost be back to back. So Falcon and Winter Soldier is premiering in late March, I believe March 19th, and that's only 6 episodes.
Wait, that's only 6 episodes?
Not a lot of episodes. Yes.
I didn't know that.
Each episode is about almost an hour long, however.
Oh, okay.
So it's going to be meaty episodes for sure. Exactly. And so from here on out, it's like, okay, we're going to have the 6 episodes. That would probably end mid-late April. And then you have a break between that until Loki, which I didn't expect maybe a break and then we go into Loki. I expected like, okay, maybe a week or two after Falcon Winter Soldier, we get Loki. So June is an interesting choice. And not only that, but Loki is that type of show that I've noticed that you don't really hear a lot about. You hear a lot about the Hawkeye series, maybe even Ms. Marvel a bit. But Loki, they kept that show very under wraps, which has me wondering where not only the direction of Loki, but also like how important is that show for the MCU. And so considering that comes out in June, and I honestly forgot they were filming, and they ended filming. I forgot it. I had no idea they did that all that stuff happened. So considering that that's going to be the next one after Falcon and Winter Soldier, hey, I'm all for it. More Marvel shows. Let's keep them coming.
You can never get enough of Tom Hiddleston as Loki too. And it's funny because you said like, oh, I wonder what direction is going to take the Marvel Cinematic Universe in, because we all know like the reason that the show can take place is because at the end of Endgame. Where I don't know if it's at the end of Endgame, but during Endgame, Loki takes like the stone, or what is it, the cube or whatever. He takes one of the Infinity Stones essentially and escapes with it somehow, right? So does that start like a new?
Yep, and this is the Loki
does
from
that
Avengers.
Start like another timeline where Loki is alive for much longer? I'm not sure exactly where it's gonna go.
Yeah, because I mean the rules of Endgame that they established was that, okay, if you have the time stones, if you take them out of the time that they're in and don't put it back, or it somehow alters everything, you create another timeline. So you have to put it back. That way, that timeline can now be erased and nothing has ever happened. Whereas in Endgame, they took the timeline, but then Loki himself took the Tesseract.
Thank you. That's the word I was looking for, the Tesseract.
So everything got messed up. Yeah, so everything got messed up. So it's like, okay, this is going to be Loki.
Leave it to Loki to fuck things up.
Which is going to be interesting.
Yeah,
it's in his DNA.
He's adopted, as Thor would say.
Yeah.
All right, so are you all pumped for Spider-Man No Way Home and for Loki? I'm sure. I don't see how you can't be, but just in case you are or you're not, leave your thoughts in that comment section below. Now, before we get into giving our thoughts on the new trailer for Luca, the next Pixar film, according to IndieWire, Nickelodeon Studios launched Avatar Studios last week to expand the universe of the iconic TV show Avatar: The Last Airbender. Viacom CBS also announced that the show's creators Michael DiMartino and Brian Konietzko, I think I'm butchering his name a little bit, will serve as co-chief creative officers. The plans of the studio is to produce numerous animated series and a theatrical animated film based on the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Now, for those of you who aren't as familiar with the show Avatar: The Last Airbender, in my opinion, this is one of the greatest TV shows of all time. And it takes place in a world where there are 4 types of element benders: air, water, earth, and fire. And there's every now and then there's one that's supposed to be the Avatar, master of all 4 elements, that's supposed to bring balance to the world. And in this particular time, the Avatar is an airbender named Aang. He's a 12-year-old kid, and he sets out on a journey with 2 of his friends, Katara and Sokka, both of a water tribe, to help Aang, to guide Aang basically in learning all 4 of these elements and bringing balance to the world. Now, I went on for a while. Darius, were you as much of a fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender? Like, are you now? Were you when the show was on?
I am actually. I absolutely love
good.
Avatar: The Last Airbender. The thing is that I was introduced to that series through the live action movie.
Bitch,
actually.
isn't it?
And it's interesting because because even before watching the series, I didn't like it. Then I watched the series and I didn't like it even more.
I mean, I never sat down.
I was like, no,
from start to finish. I think it was on Nick one time, and I'm like, all right, let me give it a shot. Like 10 seconds, and I'm like, my stomach hurts, and I changed the channel.
Yeah, like honestly, I absolutely love Avatar: The Last Airbender. I think it's just such an amazing show, and even people behind that show have gone on to do great things, like Dave Filoni. He did some of the Star Wars stuff, and even Mandalorian right now. So he was an animator on that show.
Makes a lot of sense.
So I think, yep, he was an animator on that show. So it makes sense for Dave Filoni. But anyway, Avatar. The fact that Nickelodeon is creating its own studio just dedicated to Avatar, I think it's amazing. I think it's great because there's so much you can do in that world. Because there's one thing I respect from that show, and I've kind of felt a love to do myself, is world building. And that world is so dense and has so much to it that you can tell so many different stories. You can do so many different spinoffs. So hearing that Avatar Studios is a thing, and they're actually making an animated feature, and not only an animated feature, but now, if you remember a while ago, Netflix and they still are doing a live action Avatar series, and the creators of Avatar were a part of that, but then they left. Now they're part of Avatar Studios. So that's like, Netflix, you kind of messed up now.
That's really just draw like entire contrast to the Netflix live action adaptation, because like the show, you basically told Netflix to go fuck themselves by not only leaving their show, but by serving a part in creating this new studio that's dedicated entirely to making more content based on the world that Netflix themselves wants to do a live action adaptation of. So I think Netflix they really did back themselves into a corner, because of course the creators of the show let the Netflix live action adaptation due to creative differences too. So I think Netflix is they got a long road ahead of them in terms of that.
Yep, it definitely backfired. And I think, again, Nickelodeon making Avatar Studios and to tell more stories with an Avatar reminds me of Star Wars with Lucasfilm, where it's like they did Games and Lucas Arts, which was the game division. They had so many things that are dedicated to just Star Wars, and so I think Nickelodeon's in an interesting position to keep this franchise alive, really, because really it's still popular. It's still talked about, but not as much compared to Legend of Korra, because I know that was also received pretty mixed. But since Legend of Korra, not a lot has happened other than an Avatar series in Netflix is being developed. Then the creators left.
I think from the beginning too, there was a bit of skepticism behind that Netflix show, even though the creators of the original show were attached for a while. So I just think that the fact that now they're even gone, like I just don't have the most confidence in this in the world. But the fact,
the second they left, like, I lost hope in that.
Like Netflix. Whatever potential it had, like basically went down the tubes. But I am really happy that the studio was launched, because, as you were saying before, just from the world building alone, there's so much lore that they can tap into to produce some really quality television shows, and even like some really cinematic content as well. And even then too, just when like I remember talking about Cobra Kai with someone recently, might have even been you, and I talked about how that show is like a masterclass in character development. Avatar: The Last Airbender, same exact boat. There's so much that goes on with each of the characters and how they grow and all the challenges they go through and how they change just as humans. It's an amazing, amazing show. It's a show with so many moving pieces, and that's just from the stuff that we've seen. So imagine what they can do with the stuff that we haven't seen. There's just so much that they can draw on. I can see this lasting for, if they do it right, of course, which since the original creators are involved, I can definitely see this going the right way. Absolutely. Yep. It's back on, and it's here to stay for a while. And this announcement overall really warmed my heart. And I didn't see this coming. I just figured, like, okay, the next thing we're going to get is going to be the Netflix show, and it's probably not going to be that great. But since this entire studio was launched, did you see this coming? I sure as hell didn't.
I did not. This came out of the blue. I was like, wait, what? That's a dope name? More Avatar?
My friend showed me.
That's my first impression.
My friend Jordan showed me an Instagram post while we were out to dinner, and I'm like, is this fake? Is it? I can't believe this. This is awesome.
I love how you were like, oh, is that fake? That's how I felt after a recent reveal from Pokemon when they revealed a game. And I was like, no, this can't be real.
It's like, no, but like, in this situation, like, this felt too good to be true, but I guess I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll just have to see where.
Let's just hope the creators stay on board, and I hope they're heads of the studio, because I don't know who the head of Avatar Studios are. I don't think they announced.
I don't know if they announced who the heads of the studios are, but I know that the creators of the show are serving as co-chief creative officers. And just a little bit more tidbits of information. Studio content will appear on Paramount Plus, the streaming service, Nickelodeon's platforms. It's going to go on other third-party platforms, and of course into theaters. Hence that theatrical animated film. So I think this is a great course.
Paramount Plus might be in a really better position than HBO Max at this point.
But I'm very happy with all the information that's come out about this. I'm so stoked. I can't wait to just get like more release dates and anticipated release dates and footage and whatnot. It's gonna be amazing. So, what are your thoughts on? What are your thoughts on more Avatar content coming out? Are you as psyched as me? Are you as psyched as Darius? I sincerely doubt it. Comment in the comment section below. Now,
let us know.
So now, before we move forward with our thoughts on the trailer for Luca, if you have not gotten a chance to yet, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and hit the bell to get all notifications, whether on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify, those social media platforms, those social media pages in the description. Give them a nudge. Give them a follow. Like I said, you won't regret it. Can't emphasize that enough. Now, before we get into our review of the United States versus Billie Holiday, the trailer for the next Pixar film, Luca, was released this past week. And in case you're not familiar with it, it follows adolescent sea creatures disguised as humans as they share an unforgettable summer with a human child along the Italian shore. Now, I don't know if you can tell by my last name, I am just a tiny bit biased towards this film because it's so nice for me personally to see a Pixar film set in Italy. It was not something that I anticipated. And it's very weird that it wasn't something that I wished for, but now that it's a reality, that's going to be coming to life on June 18th of this year, I can't wait. So I don't know, Darius, what were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, this film definitely looks interesting. It definitely piques anything Pixar does, I'm excited about anyway. So, but it definitely looks interesting. The animation and just the art style alone as well, kind of. Also, take the detour from the usual Pixar look that we're used to.
Is it just me?
I'm fine with. Yeah, which I'm personally completely fine with. The main characters seem so lovable and just so vibrant and energetic that I was so excited. But then, at the end of the trailer, that took me by surprise that they were freaking
fish people? Sea monsters or whatever. But then that's great too, because again, that I didn't see that coming at all. I just thought it was going to be like a coming of age story set in Italy, which honestly was interesting enough. Then you throw this, and I'm like, oh man, this is I cannot wait. I love coming of age stories in general, but the fact that you have this twist now, I did not see that coming, and I am all for it.
Same here. I am completely all for it. This movie looks, again, not a lot to say. Can't wait to see the movie, but just. It looks gorgeous, and it looks like a movie. Yet again, Pixar is going to probably make me cry yet
gorgeous. Again. It looks heartwarming. The trailer alone was very funny. And little bias towards this too. I love the music that was playing in the background of the trailer. You are my sunshine, but it was sung in Italian. I loved it so much. I'm like 99 point. Yeah, it's exactly. It's the little things. It's the little things. I'm like 99.9% confident that I'm going to absolutely adore this movie. It's set to premiere on June 18th. I'm assuming that it would go into theaters as well. Is it going to go on Disney Plus? Like, do you know anything about that?
I'm not sure. Either way, I will see it if it's on Disney Plus. I hope it's not premiere, because again, that's just gonna ruin almost the experience for me. Because it's like, come on, no $30. I want to see this movie. But yeah, this movie absolutely looks amazing. Set in Italy, which is in itself, even the setting itself, because Italy has a lot of history when it comes to their architecture and it comes to their landscapes, which I'm really stoked to see that in a Pixar animated film. I have to say this: there's one thing Pixar does well, especially when it came to movies like Coco and Soul, is that they do their research. They know how to make this place feel what it should be with the necessary characters that push the story that they're telling. Exactly. Their authenticity towards these places is unparalleled to a lot of other animation studios. Again, Pixar is the biggest for a reason. And again, I'm excited for Luca. This looks amazing. Sounds amazing.
Same here.
I can't wait to see it.
So this is a little thing that I didn't expect to like as much as I did. It is not something that I think I would want, but I can't wait to watch this. This is going to be absolutely stellar. All right, now, actually, before we move on, I just got to ask you guys: are you going to see Luca? If you're not, then I think you need your head examined. But just in case you have anything to say, type your mind in that comment section below. Now, to wrap up the show, we are going to be reviewing The United States versus Billie Holiday. The film follows the life story of American singer Billie Holiday as she battles both drug addiction and the U.S. government, and has an affair with the FBI agent leading an undercover sting operation against her. This premiered on Hulu this past weekend, which is why we're reviewing it. It stars Andra Day as Billie Holiday, Trevante Rhodes from Moonlight, Tyler James Williams from Everybody Hates Chris, and Garrett Hedlund. Now, it was also directed by Lee Daniels. So, Darius, what did you think of this movie overall?
I personally really enjoyed it. I really liked it. And I think, honestly, the experience of this film made it even better, considering I was with my granduncle, and he was telling me so much information about back then and what happened, and hearing the lyrics the first time when I'm watching the movie, right? It opens with a pretty graphic image that I think should really make you think about American history in general, and American history involved with Black Americans in general. And after that, when I heard those, because at first I wasn't sure what this was all about, so I did my research beforehand, and I was like, wait, it's about a song? But when I heard those lyrics in the movie, and even as I was going to sleep, it is powerful. It is for a reason, and it makes you think of a lot of things. I think in general, with how American history has also been altered in a way where it's not black and white, right? Or at least in certain ways to how American history has been portrayed to a certain extent. It is black and white, but not giving us the gray areas. And I think me watching this film opened my eyes even further with just how tormented a lot of the Black community has really just over the years in general. And the thing is that we're so aware of this, but we're not aware of just how deep it goes. And I think this movie really, and even other films like from Lee Daniels and even other movies like Selma, Butler, and because Butler was also another film which I thought he did excellent with. It just kind of uncovers some of the buries that we've tried to do in America, and I think this film overall, I really enjoyed it. I really loved it. I felt for this person, because it's like she is making an art form that is something deeply connected to her, and it is her job to how she sees it to tell it the way she wants to. And when she does it, you see there's so much backlash, and people don't understand. I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's a scene. It's an interview scene that I thought really opened a lot of eyes, and it should open a lot of other people's minds as to sort of the differences in mentality shifts between certain Black Americans and even Caucasian Americans in general, because it's so drastic, like it's so obvious, and I hope a lot of people pick up on that because I think it's even more important to in today and 2021, 2022, 23, just from here on out, because it's like for years change has been wanting to happen, but it's slowly, but not to where it should be. And one of the things that my uncle has mentioned that I really um, respect is, and even amongst my family, is that some people think us as humanity, even specifically Americans, think that we're more civilized and more evolved than any, and they were in their mind mentality were saying we are nowhere near as evolved as we should be, considering the amount of history that we've had, and just how much something, I guess, almost the bad and the good are almost equal, and that it shouldn't be there. And again, just listening to some of those conversations were just not necessarily uplifting, but insightful and wise, because it's just so many different perspectives. And I think this film handled it so well and so elegantly and so perfectly that I don't have a problem almost with anything in this movie. And it's really hard to
Honestly,
pick out
there
my
are,
issues.
believe it or not, a few issues that I have with the film, because like the movie overall is fine. It's not like it's definitely not bad, but it's not like amazing for sure. Especially when it comes to director Lee Daniels. This is the same guy who did Precious, which is a phenomenal movie. I never saw The Butler, and also he didn't do Selma. Ava DuVernay directed Selma, but
Yeah.
I thought
No,
you were
I
I
know,
thought you were
but I was just
correlating. I thought you
in
were
regards to
well, I
how
thought you were
the
saying
message and everything.
listing off Lee Daniels'
Yeah, no,
filmography when you said Selma. But like I said, overall,
no.
like the movie's fine. So I think it's definitely worth the watch. I do think it could have been about, I want to say maybe a half hour shorter, because there were definitely certain points where I felt like it dragged. And as far as like the motion of the story itself, I felt like honestly it doesn't. It's weird. There are definitely scenes that are memorable and poignant for sure, but I'm saying it's like the motion of the story overall. I can't say in terms of like historical biopics it really goes anywhere worth um worth remembering. And it's
Yeah.
weird because like the story itself is interesting. There's obviously a lot of moving pieces to the story, but I just felt like overall it just struggled to kind of like itself along. Like it did drag like a bit.
Yeah, I do get that, and I do see that. Because I did notice, because okay, I do have some
Mhm.
problems, and you did mention that. That it did slow a bit at certain times, but I think for me specifically, in general, so some of the slowness in certain scenes was, and because there were times when they were like, you need to just
Mhm.
feel this part, like not just see it and hear it, but you need to feel it and understand where she's coming from, why she's almost in this state, and you see her how her drug abuse actually also affected her
Mhm.
vocal cords, from what
Especially
I
towards
could
the end.
tell, and I thought that was, yeah, that was pretty, like that was very intense to watch. And again, I thought they started off strong. It wasn't necessarily me connecting with the characters, but really me connecting with the theme they were trying to tell. And that's where
Mhm.
I think this film was a bit compared to other movies that I've watched, was that yes, you do want to connect with these characters, but also it's like you want to connect with the themes that are going about it. As I don't want to say anything. I don't want the characters to say anything in this scene. No, you need to feel this scene. You need to feel these transitions. And when you watch the movie, you'll know which scene I'm talking about. And that was also a pretty not hard to watch moment. Very intense and very, you almost see her mind and how it works,
Mhm.
really. And again, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought they did a lot of good, as well as they still maybe have some flaws in some of the pacing. Maybe some of the could have been shorter. Me it was the messaging that connected me. It wasn't necessarily just not necessarily the characters all the time, but it was just the messaging and the fact of like I wish we have even more movies like this because again, people are aware of it, but how aware are they? And I think this movie kind of almost hits on more points, especially in that beginning, the opening itself.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned the messaging and the themes. Like that's another thing I noticed too, and actually respected about this. Like it doesn't ram it down your throat.
Hello?
Like you're basically saying, like you have to feel it yourself and like figure it out for yourself. It doesn't tell you. It doesn't really tell you or preach anything to you, which is very interesting.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's like being in this moment with her. You know, you're not her, but you're with her, and you're seeing how her psychological mentality and her shifts are actually almost working. It's almost like her mental gears, and I really like that. And I was like, this is interesting. Which Lee Daniels took.
All right, so yeah, overall, what did you guys think of the United States versus Billie Holiday? If you have any thoughts, I'm gonna guess that you do. Leave them in that comment section there below. And just like that, episode 10 of Cinema Unchained is done. If you have not gotten a chance to yet, I don't know how you haven't. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and hit that bell to get all notifications, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Apple and Spotify podcasts. And follow our social media pages in the description below. They're there for a reason. And now I'm really looking forward to next week as well, because at the moment we are currently slated to review WandaVision as a whole, as an entire series, as well as Coming to America and Raya and the Last Dragon. So next week is going to be a great show. You all should definitely. That look that says it like,
oh man,
Darius just gave us just like, guys. Wow, I forgot we were doing all that. This is going to be great. I'm really looking forward to this. All right, so until next time, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. See you next week.